Welcome back to another episode of Inside Multifamily Access Control, brought to you by Salto. Again, Colin's with me. Colin, how you doing?
Doing well. Hello, everybody.
So pretty excited today to have Andrew Goldfarb join us from Goldfarb Properties and a company also called WalkIn, and we'll get into what the companies do themselves. But I think this is a great conversation to take a view from somebody who's doing it every single day in the real estate marketplace, especially in the rental market in New York City. We hear a lot about what's going on in New York. It seems to be sort of the bellwether of sort of of conversation when it comes to real estate. So having somebody like Andrew come in to spend some time with us to talk about the real estate market, access control specifically in that area, some of the stuff around self-touring and the rest. So we'll get into all that. But Andrew, thank you very much for taking the time to do this.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lee and Colin.
Yeah, so if you would, do you mind just give us a background on yourself, the company, what got you in the industry, and then a little bit about the companies, both Goldfarb Properties and WalkIn.
Yeah, so I've grew up in the rental industry. I've spent a ton of my life in the rental office, listening, hearing everything going on. So as far as, the flow and how prospects, want to see an apartment and how agents show an apartment, I'm super familiar with that. I've always been fascinated with self-touring. I've always been trying to seamlessly bring everything together, and how can an agent cut down on the back and forth, and how can a prospect see an apartment in a more efficient manner rather than the back and forth. So with electronic locks becoming what they are today, it was something I dove into. I started WalkIn. I'm the founder of WalkIn, and giving my relation to Goldfarb Properties, implemented that into the company. We were using it for probably 30% of our properties before the pandemic, and after COVID, we increased it to 100%. Obviously there was a time during the lockdown in Manhattan where nothing was happening. Every real estate company is like, wait, how can I show an apartment without somebody necessarily being there? So self-touring was looked on a little bit more seriously, and you didn't need to push all the points as hard as you had to. Obviously, after the pandemic, I think self-touring is still going to be a huge attribute for a number of reasons. But it was one part of the industry that's certainly looked highly upon after COVID.
Yeah, question on that. And I know you don't have sort of a crystal ball, but to get your opinion, do you think self-touring would have been adopted anytime soon if it wasn't for COVID? You know what I mean? Or like, you can imagine this was something that would happen at some point, but if you had a guess, would that have been a 10-year thing, 5-year thing, or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's more like a 5-year thing. Listen, I think a lot of these, especially Gen Zers, they're coming in and they want instant access, kind of like that Amazon effect. And they want the information, they want the tools, and let me go. I don't have the attention span to go back and forth with you and pick a time and confirm a time and meet you. It's put the ball in my court, let me go see the unit, and from there, I'll contact you on my terms.
Yeah, you can see that it was sort of the Uber or whoever, the expectations. And it's actually kind of interesting too, because before it was seen as a benefit to meet somebody because they could walk you through everything and do it, right? And then, so how do you keep that same touch, but then allow people? I guess you give choice. If people want to have that, it'll still probably be there. And this just gives them another option.
Yeah, listen. In some landlords, they give the option. You want to meet with an agent, you can book a time, or alternatively, if you want to go on your own time, you can book a self-tour. Some instances, landlords only offer a self-tour and just use walk-in. Obviously, like giving that option, people can look for apartments now from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and they can just go when they want. A big difference between walk-in and a lot of the other self-tour solutions is that most of the self-tour solutions out there, they make you book a specific time. And everyone's so afraid of double booking. I've never had a problem with double booking. This thought of someone walking into an apartment and 10 people being there, I just don't. If you walk into an apartment and 10 people are there, then you priced your apartment way too low. You know what I mean? So I've always found if you walk into an apartment and there's a person there or two people there, well, then you're in the right place, and it creates urgency. So we literally leave visiting hours open. It's adjustable by the landlord, and it really enables people to just go when they want to rather than committing to something.
Yeah, and there's an aspect of it though from a software standpoint, I understand, but then you have to have the hardware part to be able to work with it. So, question for you: are most of the units that you're working with, are they already ready for this and just need the software side, or do you see people having to rip and replace to be able to support this? Like, how do you view that happening? Because I get asked a lot, like, great, what's the retrofit market going to look like, and are people going to spend the money to have this type of experience? So how do you approach it, or what do your properties look like right now?
Yeah, as far as Goldfarb, we certainly see the advantage of electronic locks. We chose Salto. We think Salto is the best lock set for us. We see the advantage of not having to deal with keys. We see the advantage of self tours. The automation is amazing for us, and obviously, I think in the future we'll get more of a payback on rent. You know what I mean? I think access control and all this IoT solutions, I think it's like gyms, like 5, 6, 10 years ago. At least in Manhattan, it's, you didn't need a gym. And if you had a gym, great. And you could put it on your wish list. And then all of a sudden, if you're a luxury building, you're expected to have a gym. Now it's the same thing. If you have access control and an IoT solution, that's great. And, you might get more money, but I could see in 5 years, it's going to be more expected. But we certainly see the solution. As far as retrofitting buildings, it's certainly hard to find smart buildings, right? You're lucky to find a building that's smart and wants the self-touring solution, right? So we're right now adapting to that, and we're integrating with some lock boxes and some deadbolt solutions that are more, instead of building wide, can be cycled through vacants. So a landlord can come to me and say, hey, I want 10 lock sets, and they can put on their 10 vacants. They can rent those apartments, and then they can take them off that door and put it on the next set of vacants, which which is a really awesome solution for landlords. There's a really big landlords out there that just don't want to put forth the money for a complete retrofit. So that's how we're going about it, is kind of this manual assignment per door per lock.
So one of the I think neat things, but also complicated things that walk-in brings, and this idea of self-touring brings, is you're moving the access, right, from security side of things, where with residents and everything, access control was always based on kind of securing the residents and things of that nature. Lee and I have talked a lot about how that security side is transitioning towards convenience and experience and care, as Lee calls it. But as we move, now we're moving kind of forward of that. And so these people aren't residents yet. They haven't maybe done background check. How do you handle kind of verification and knowing who these people are and things of that nature? So you're providing that convenience, you're providing that experience, but you're making sure that we're doing it in a responsible manner.
Yeah, so we partnered with a third-party ID verification software. Takes a picture of your ID, takes a selfie, matches it up, you get verified in 12 seconds. The landlord has an option to also collect credit card information. Most landlords don't do that. Again, it's just like another barrier. So that's one way. The other way is we have all building staff, let's say supers or agents, if they're on site, they also have the app. They get a push notification when someone arrives. So as soon as someone arrives to a building, they get a push notification, which tells the super, hey, there's someone in the building, good to know. They're going to go see this apartment. And also for an agent, they know, okay, someone's in the building, full court press, let me put my sales hat on. I'm going to chat with that agent. I'm going to video chat with that agent. And I can really put the best foot forward. At the end of the day, this agent didn't coordinate the showing, didn't go back and forth through email, didn't go back and forth through phone. This is a gift. This person downloaded a key, showed up on the property. This is a serious renter, super high chance to be converted, right? So especially with virtual tours now, seeing a virtual tour, it used to be, hey, I want to look for an apartment. Let me go see 10 apartments. And then let me narrow it down to, 3 or 5. Now with virtual touring, it's let me see 10 apartments and then let me go out to see 3 or 5. So every time we get that self tour and that prospect walking in the door, the conversion rate is much higher. Agents, they get the push, they're reaching out, seeing if they need anything, answering any questions. And the landlords that do have an issue with self-touring and security, I always like to go on the Airbnb example, right? Like we let these people into our homes fully furnished, all our belongings. It works out. Why does it work out? Because I got your ID and I got your credit card and I'm putting you in check. So in this situation, you're walking into a vacant apartment. If it was furnished, I always advise, some sort of security camera. Too easy to put something in your pocket. But if it's vacant, we haven't had any issues so far. Hopefully we don't. And Lee, I just want to go to your last question real quick. Is a lot of buildings in Manhattan who have doorman buildings, they have physical keys. So a bunch of our clients who haven't retrofitted their building or aren't even interested in electronic locks, they're interested in the solution because basically someone can go see a unit, get verified. It renders a badge. They can show the doorman their badge and they can retrieve a physical key, which is like very low tech, but at the same time, this is a practice that's been going on in Manhattan forever. It's kind of like the lazy way of go see an apartment. So now there's a little bit more accountability. I know who you are. I know when you arrived. I can talk to you during the tour. So that's kind of like the low tech self-touring at the moment.
Yeah, it must be just butchering the warm cookie industry though too. I feel bad for for that side where before you'd walk in, you'd have all that. No, I'm kidding. It's very, very interesting on that end. So when it comes to actually a question that I get asked a lot, and curious your thoughts on this would be, we have all of these new software solutions being introduced to the market and there's a cost to be bared by them, right? Like somebody's going to have to do it. So initially, maybe people aren't concerned about it, but as more and more of this stuff comes on, like who ultimately, where do you see this like landing? Is this a property management? Do you end up seeing end users having to start to like pay to use services like where, how do you see? Because at some point it's almost like the streaming for, I point here like you're in my place and you can see the TV, but it's like streaming wise, right? We have like 900 streaming things. So where do you see the costs like ending up when this all is said and done?
For self-touring solutions or just like SaaS in general and building?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's part of that sort of SaaS bucket. Self-touring, I can kind of see specifically where that goes, right? It's like an operational type thing.
Yeah.
But just overall in general, like right now, because we're early, so it's not as much of an issue, but I do think as things continue and everybody, especially once we get everything sort of the infrastructure there where door locks and sensors and so like all the hardware is there. So now we're going to just be layering software.
Yeah.
We'll start to see like at some point, I got to believe there'll be, SaaS sort of whatever the term is for like, people aren't going to be like, SaaS to death. I don't know what the right term is, but
yeah. It's super interesting because it's changing so much. Last year at this time, I would have said something completely different. And at this point, I really think that the landlord, I think in a lot of solutions is going to bear the price, right? Like they have the money and they need to make it a seamless and a welcoming solution for their tenants. At the end of the day, your tenant's happy, you can renew them and they're going to renew, right? You have a tenant leave, you're looking at 2 months vacant, right? At the very least. So I think in most cases, the landlord will bear the price of the SaaS solution, but then you have solutions out there where they're set up where the solution makes money off of the number of users, right? So, you have solutions out there where they're calling landlords up and it's for free. And it's an amazing solution. And it's wild because they're making money off of your tenants. So it'll really be interesting to see if landlords are going to say, okay, wow, this is such a good solution. And yes, they're making money off my tenants and I'm not making money off my tenants, but this is such a big lift for us. I'm ready to settle. Or there are going to be landlords out there where like, listen, I'm not letting you in my buildings. I'm not letting you in my ecosystem. The landlords are very old school in that way. Like, do not come, this is my brick. And it's hard to get your foot in the door, right? So that's a big ask for a lot of landlords. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out, because even solutions that do say, well, we're going to give you this solution for free, it's hard for landlords to stomach that you're going to come in and make money off of the usage of my tenants.
Yeah, very interesting. So transitioning slightly here, we've talked about the impact that COVID in the past year and all of that has had on the software and the demands of the tenants and all of that. What are we seeing in New York right now? Give us your thoughts on the rental market in New York, what you're seeing. Is it coming back? Is it stabilizing? What's your thoughts right now just on kind of a regional perspective of rentals in New York?
Yeah, it's a good time to rent. Like if you want to rent, this is the time. Who knows what it'll be next year from now. The people that know what they're doing, and I hate saying this, but like ask for a 2-year lease, lock it in, and you'll be able to probably keep your rent the same for 2 years. There was a mass exodus after COVID. There's no doubt about it. It was grim in New York City. Every landlord got a huge slap in the face, and you had to make an adjustment, right? So, landlords are offering, either lowering their gross rent, or they're offering an enormous amount of concession to bring that rent down. 2 months free, 3 months free. The thing about rentals is you can rent it, and then maybe on the second year, you're going to get a chance to make up for what has happened, rather than like sales. I feel sorry for the people that are building apartments for sales, because this is like you're one and done. So that's why you see a lot of sales properties converting to rentals all of a sudden, because it's like, there's no way I put all this work in and I'm selling these apartments during a pandemic. But New York City, it's coming back. The prices are certainly low, and they are not getting much higher, but as far as the conversions and the amount of rentals, they're flying right now. New York City's super seasonal, a lot of seasonality. Spring's coming back. People are coming back from the Hamptons. People are coming back from upstate. Vaccines coming. I see a huge comeback, faster than people think. I don't know if we'll be back to normal in a year, but we're definitely going to get an uptick. I think the buildings that have young professionals in them, which are a lot of buildings nowadays, those got hit the hardest, because again, I'm not going to work, I'm not going to school, and those buildings got hit. I think rents went down there probably 40-50%. So you got a 1-bedroom, you're paying $42.50. All of a sudden, I can come in now and I'm paying $26.50, which is lower than what a studio would have been in that property. So there's been a huge, massive adjustment, but I am confident that going into this summer, if we stay on track, I think that's going to certainly get better.
From a property management and developer standpoint, are you seeing any changes in demands? Are there going to have to be refurbished common areas and things of that nature to accommodate some of the new demands from these renters? Or do you not see that much changing from it? It's now more just about the rent and the comeback and people feeling safe? Or do you think there's some adjustments that need to be made as far as how properties are laid out, the setup, what those young professionals are looking for in order to come back to?
Yeah, I think there's probably going to be a lot more people working remotely. So a huge thing might be short-term rentals, right? So I might not want to sign a 1-year lease in Manhattan, right? Because I don't know if I want to be here for a year. Maybe I want to go to LA for a bit. Maybe I want to go down south for a bit. So I think it was definitely, remote working was certainly coming before COVID. I think after COVID, it's going to be even more of a sticking point. So I think short-term rentals, even throughout the pandemic, right? Like, I don't know when my job is going to start at Goldman Sachs. I have to renew now. I don't know if I'm going to renew for a year because I don't know when I'm going to go back to work. So why don't I rent a short-term for 4 months, 6 months, see how it goes and not make such a commitment. But certainly I think remote work is going to be huge. So as far as, setting the bar higher for landlords, I think, there's always been this amenity race. I think there'll have to be, certainly some workstations in properties. I think that would be a huge contribution to the community. But as far as right now, I think people are looking at numbers, right? So they're looking at numbers. The people that were paying for a 1-bedroom in the Upper West Side, let's say Harlem, are now can live in, let's say, Columbus Circle. And so there's just been this huge shift. People that have never been able to live in the center of Manhattan now can live in the center of Manhattan, where before it was an absolute dream. So it's certainly based on, it's certainly incentive and rent driven at the moment.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a part of that that's actually maybe, maybe it's hate to say it's a good thing, but right, like
Yeah.
it allows more opportunity in some regards, and maybe it sort of normalizes things a little bit. And you've got to believe these things are going to be cyclical. And the questions when I get asked about it, I always go back to, like, after 9/11, you saw people leave as well, and people like, I'm never going to live in a big city again, and then you saw people move back in. And also, I doubt that, I live here in DC. Capitol Hill isn't going to allow major cities to get just crushed in commercial real estate and multifamily real estate and the rest. Like, a lot of the people that work on the Hill, they made a lot of money from commercial real estate, and there's a good lobbying end of it. And plus, it's an engine in a lot of cases for the economy that, they're not going to just let that. It's not going to fail in that regard. It may look different. So I got to believe there'll be some inrush of money as well that's going to help. Be curious to see what happens. So Class A, the expectation of Class A is also, I think, going to change a little bit, right? With these amenities, where before you didn't need to have all this touchless and all that other stuff. It was, you needed the pickle ball, court and the rest. I mean, like, whatever, like, those are the things. Now, some of these other stuff, which is more core to like what we do, is expected in Class A, which then also some of Class B moves up as well. So maybe there's a reshift of expectations, and that will open up opportunities. Like, again, how many? Let me ask you this: on your showing side that you have, when the self-touring, is that primarily Class A, or is it also now being into Class B? Like, where are you seeing that move, or is it all of them at this point?
I would say it's all of them at this point. Even brokers, for that matter, right? Like, a lot of brokers are so afraid of self-touring because they're afraid it's going to replace their job. But then, there's some brokers that just know, like, listen, I have to embrace this technology. So we have even brokers using this technology, Class A, Class B, 6-story walk up, huge multifamily elevator buildings, huge complex. Everyone's really adopting it at the moment. So it's certainly exciting. And, I think what excites us most are the prospects that basically we never talk to, right? A landlord's never talked to. I'm getting a call from a landlord, and they're telling me that they're receiving applications from prospects that they never even emailed or called. And that's because of our self-tour call to action on their listing page, right? So someone finds the listing through an ILS or Google AdWords, they click that call to action. They're downloading a key. They're going to see the unit. They're applying, and they never even talk to them. So, you know, we'll certainly see a shift there. As far as everything touchless, I think that'll certainly you know, get more and more adopted. But you know, we got to get we have to show the landlords that there's a huge advantage to getting you know, access control and touchless.
Yeah, no, I would agree. So, Andrew, if people want to find out more information about your products and your services that you provide, where's the best place to do that?
Yeah, go to walk.in. You can check that out, and be more than happy to come over, check out the building, no matter where you are in the world or country, and be happy to show you what solution we suggest for you.
Yeah, check out walk.in. I love the URL. It makes a lot of sense. So good on you guys. So Andrew, thank you very much for taking the time, giving us insight on how you see the marketplace specific to in New York City as well. It's good to hear from people that are there versus a bunch of us that don't live there saying, here's what I've read. It's nice to actually get some input. So thanks for taking the time.
No problem.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Thank you.